Hello. Oh, there we go. All right. Hello, craft beer professionals. Welcome. Really glad to be here. Nick Burgoyne with AFP and Aseptic Fruit Purees, and I got Ben Chambers with me, good buddy, and also head of operations. Yeah, thanks, Ben. Why don't you tell them?
Yeah, head of operations at Newport Craft, Radiant Pig, Braven brand brewing, and we're out of Rhode Island, big state of Rhode Island.
Awesome. So you've been using a lot of fruit puree throughout the course of your career, but also recently. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're just going to kind of go over some basics for you guys and gals, just to so you have a little more information about fruit purees. So to kick it off, I was just going to kind of go over basics, like what aseptic means, and it's basically just it means it's defined as it's free of contamination caused by harmful bacteria, viruses, or other microorganisms. So what that means is, we pasteurize our product and to the point where it's free of any microbes or bioactivity, just so you can ensure that you have a safe product to add to your beer. And the way we accomplish this is a flash pasteurization at 194 degrees for a couple seconds, depending on the fruit. And some, other purees that are like frozen, they'll do like a longer pasteurization at a lower temperature. Well, we just kind of don't like to gamble with stuff like that. And, we kind of figured that you wouldn't either, the craft professionals that you are. So that's kind of the lowdown on aseptic for anyone who doesn't know. Most breweries don't have the luxury of small breweries don't have the luxury of QA or QC, so you're kind of depending on getting a quality product to avoid anything down the line. And I know you've experienced this, Ben. Anything to expand on with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me personally, I've worked in breweries as large as macrobreweries like Coors, and as small as 10-barrel breweries, and then a lot of regionals, and with you, Nick, and the scariest thing to do is add fruit to a beer and put it in a package, and worry that you're going to hear that you're responsible for carpet cleaning or kitchen cleaning when the fruit goes kaboom in someone's living room. So I mean, it's a huge concern from a QC standpoint, having a reliable fruit product in the beer that's not going to re-ferment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that kind of kicks off to the hot debate about adding fruit post fermentation, and that's actually a question we get a whole lot, is when to add your fruit. Should you add it post fermentation or during fermentation? What do you think?
I mean, I think that there's benefits to both, and I mean, for me personally, I like to maximize the fruit flavor. So I like the later in the process, the better for me. I feel like putting it in on the hot side, you're cooking, you're changing those fruit flavors, you're kind of converting those sugars a little bit, and really, not getting an expected fruit flavor out of it. So the later you can put it in through like post fermentation, dry hopping, or on the cold side, the better off it is.
Right. Yeah, just to clarify, we're talking about adding it during fermentation, but toward the tail end, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you're not fermenting out that fruit. You avoid the cooking on the hot side, and you avoid fermenting out that fructose and all those good flavors, and not knowing what you end up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you also have experience with other with using the products and, just like the addition process, different varieties of packaging that we have. Like, how does that help you, with different aspects of your job, whether it's like um, developing a new brand or kind of trying to maintain a brand that you've had around.
Oh yeah, I mean that versatility is huge. So um, it is. And thinking about the lack of versatility in packaging, just a funny story about Nick and adding clamshells of blackberries from a national vendor of fruit and adding them into a footer, and it taking the better part of a day. So having something like a drum that you could pump out of in a safe manner, that's huge. Or if you're not the type of brewery that has the ability or the need for an entire drum of puree, having these pourable bags is huge, and having that versatility.
Yeah, and so we also like that story is great. Real quick, I basically ordered a bunch of fresh fruit, not asking what packaging it came in, and it came in small clamshells. So we probably had about 1 million of these that we had to add to a fooder, and that was really fun. Great lesson learned. But yeah, if I would have just had puree, wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to what you were saying about the different packaging sizes, like we have everything from, a 4.5 pound bag for home brewers, or for just like, if you're trying to get an idea of what something's going to be like, all the way to an 11-pound bag. Most people order 44-pound bags. And then we also have drums that are 440 pounds. So a little something for everyone. And just also so you can get an idea of the product and not have to commit to, whatever volume that is. And I think that definitely helps, with pretty much every aspect of production, because there's a place for all of those. And then what about like your innovation and, what's your innovation program like at
Yeah.
Newport?
Yeah, so I mean, we're a brew distillery, so we make everything from bottled spirits to ready to drink cocktails, and we run the gamut on beer too. And we have a pilot system that is significantly smaller than our main system, and it's a luxury that not every brewery has, but it allows us to do small batches of products and play with fruits. And I mean, it makes it sound very easy, and it's not very easy, especially when you're on a time crunch like most breweries are. You don't have years to develop a product, so you're really doing things kind of on the fly, and hoping for the best, and making the best decisions that you can, and making these educated guesses on some of it. But and that's another thing that's great about aseptic fruit, and just like the ability to buy some, not necessarily have our numbers down, and be okay with it sitting for a little bit, and not having to worry that it's going to spoil immediately. So it's definitely a benefit, because it's not always a clear path in innovation, and trying to figure out what to do. It takes trial, and it takes a lot of failure, honestly. So being able to have that failure and not expect it from the fruit, but just to dial in the amounts and things like that, it really helps.
Yeah, you actually brought up like a good point. It's like when you have aseptic fruit, you can kind of just have it around and use it when you want to use it, not the other way around. Like if you fresh fruit, you got to get it in there soon. Even IQF, frozen, you're kind of working on that clock. And this, you can kind of like, I used to just order a puree, something I wanted to work with, and just have it around. And when I got to it, it was, it made things a lot easier, especially with like, now we're living in these like, logistical nightmares, so,
Yeah.
like one thing that I got accustomed to doing was like just always having the fruit on hand when I, when I brewed the beer. So I wasn't waiting, because logistics can be a nightmare. And it's just, it seems like it's a total crapshoot these days.
Oh yeah.
But
if you're in a production brewery and you stick a stick in the gears, because you don't get the fruit on time, it can really throw things off and make everybody stay miserable, including, right on down to sales departments and things like that, distributors that are waiting for it, or then you start losing accounts and yada, yada. It's never fun. Yeah.
I know it's way easier said than done too sometimes. And sometimes you're in a crunch and, we want to try and, make that happen for you. I was just kind of wanted to talk about a little bit just where we source our fruit from, and who we are a little bit. And Ben knows this, and kind of for everyone else it's not super familiar. So we are a company started around 2015 2017 to fine tune, like to sort of become what we have and choose to focus on fermentation industry, just because we want to be a part of that community. Because I came from it, Ben's in it. It's an awesome community. People are really good to each other for the most part. And, we love beer. So it's, that was needed, another fruit supplier. So, and most of our fruit we source from Colombia, South America, which is like a little bit different and some people are used to, but it's a year-round grow season, which is cool. And you'll see a little more frequent, some more variation from lot to lot, but some customers actually like that. And, kind of sets you apart from, other things that everyone is, kind of doing. And then, that kind of leads itself into, some of the more exotic fruits we have. We have 26 in our catalog. And then, some some you probably never heard of, like, Karuba and the Lulo. And I know that you've worked with those a lot in the past. So I don't know, maybe you kind of describe your experience with those.
Yeah. I love the variety that you guys offer. It's definitely fun and unique to work with, and I've learned a lot just from your catalog and looking into things, and then getting things like chef testimonials or confectionery chef testimonials on some of these fruits that I've never even heard of. It's amazing to really learn about them. But I think the cool thing about having that South American roots is the seasonality here versus there, and like a lot of the fruits that you get from here, they might be hard to find at times because of seasonality and just the agribusiness and all that. So it kind of takes that out of play and gives more options where you might be able to, if you can't source it from a domestic supplier, you guys will more likely have it in stock than another domestic supplier.
Sure.
But yeah, specifically Karuba. Karuba is amazing. So that we're working with right now in a cocktail, and it gives like that real Caribbean vibe because it's like banana passion fruit and just these flavor profiles that are amazing in a cocktail like that, and like a Caribbean rum cocktail. Rum is our flagship spirit, so having that, it sets it apart, and everybody that's tasted it, it's so super unique. It's amazing. And then Lulo we used in a sour beer, and a kettle sour beer, and what it brought to the table for like tropical flavors was just amazing. It had this bright citrus flavor to it, and it's just it's unique. It's not like any other citruses that you get, any domestic tangerine, orange, something like that. It's super unique and bright, and just brings a different aspect to it that honestly the other breweries in the area, they don't, if they're not using that, they might not have that ability. to just diversify.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to my time, and as a brewer, I remember I made like a Berliner one time and just added Karuba, and it's just so unique. People were like, "What is this?" Like, it kind of seemed like there's more than one fruit in there. Or if you mix that like with another fruit or even two, like you've got like a crazy layered, super complex, um, flavor profile that is, really unique and hard to achieve through any other way. So, you're always trying to set yourself apart from the competition, right? So, what better way to do it than, have some fruits like people don't even like have never heard of, and then they'll, look it up, and, it's just kind of it's a cool thing to share that with people as well.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I see it too is like, so many people get into this business and they don't necessarily have a science background or a degree in brewing or anything like that, but you can set yourself apart and create your own identity through having unique flavors, such as these fruits, and really showcase that. And, not to put anybody down, but you can do kind of basic things and really make them complex beverages at the end of the day by using ingredients like this.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always kind of been an advocate of not um, under undervaluing the science behind it, but there needs to be like an artful execution, and I think that's what really makes your product unique. Um, and it kind of keeps people coming back for more. And I don't know, it's not just boxed up, and
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
standard, and it's different for everyone, but that's just kind of the way I see it. And I think, I mean, brewing is an art, so you know
absolutely. Yep.
not push the envelope.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, in today's consumer, sorry, today's consumer, they want variety. They want like their own identity on what they're drinking. So having things different and trying things out that you normally wouldn't, and the industry historically has not, tapped into that until the last 5 years or so. And now having these varieties and something different, it makes this such an awesome industry to be in.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have so many, 26 different purees. So I mean, if you do the math on that, I mean, how many possible combinations could you get out of that? And I think you muted. Yeah, there you go.
I did. Sorry, my phone's ringing, and I can brew a beer, but I can't turn a phone on mute, so I'm limited. But yeah, no, totally. I mean, the possibilities are endless, and it's fun to get samples from you guys, lay them all out, and just taking the production team and everybody and beyond, just like let's sit down and play with flavor combinations, and it becomes this really fun activity for everybody to do because you're just testing your palate at some point and just saying like this is amazing what these two flavors together can bring.
Yeah, man, that just takes us back to our old days and how we, just sitting in
Yeah,
the lab, just doing blends, like different blends, different fruits, like, and yeah, it's exciting. It's so fun. And when you, see that come to life, it's definitely something that is something to be proud of. And it was just so fun to work with you on that.
oh yeah, absolutely. And it is, it's great having a resource like you two, where you say, hey, here's something new, or here's this, or try that, and you have that developed palate from years of brewing and just evaluating some of these flavors, and I can take what you say, and I'm like, damn, Nick's got it, still got it.
Well, it's also good to have that someone to bounce ideas off of and kind of validate what you're kind of thinking as well.
Yeah,
And so that's definitely something
yep.
there. Um So moving on to like some of the equipment and some of the like processes that we use. Um, things like when you first start, you're just adding fruit to the tank, and that's fine, kind of like similar to a dry hop situation with what we were talking about earlier. Toward the end of fermentation, kind of like when you would dry hop or when you used to dry hop back in the day.
Yeah.
But or your second dry hop edition these days.
Right.
That's great and everything, but it's definitely worth mentioning. As your brewery grows, as your brands grow, you're gonna eventually need like bigger boxes, and sometimes like adding that to a tank turns into a tricky, dangerous prospect. And yeah, it's just something that I've kind of noticed with my coming from a pretty structured, like very safety minded place. But it wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
And it's something that you don't think about until it's too late in some cases. And a simple like just fabricating a keg where you can add the boxes and then purge it out and add it, like push it in with CO2 is like
Yep.
something worthwhile, or like a recirculation system similar like dry hopping.
Right.
And then when you eventually move up to drums, but just think like it behooves us to keep people aware of the safety concerns also that comes with this, because it's very easy to I know how it is, how it is in the brewery. You're like, just want to get it done, the day goes on forever and you're just like,
Yeah.
I want to get this done. It's so easy to kind of take a shortcut sometimes, but
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah,
One thing that we're doing too, talking about equipment, when we're adding a high pressure tank, but we're also looking at recirculating through a high shear emulsifier, just because we want the quality of a puree, but homogenizing that puree for us is key too. So we get the best of both worlds, where we get that maximum flavor from a puree versus a juice, but we get to emulsify it into our product. That's something that's a little tougher to do on the beer side than the cocktail side, but it gives you an idea of how to do kind of add-ons and play with some of these things, and really engineer in something that suits you and your brewery versus getting on the ladder and pouring the guy into a port.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's something to think about, and try and keep safe. But
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that high shear pump, because that's like when you told me that, when we were talking before this, I was like, man, that's awesome. That's that's definitely something that's worthwhile.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of an investment, but it's definitely worth it when you reach that level. Kind of like
totally.
like moving on to like the like how do you guys empty your drums like when you when you order them?
Yeah, so just using a bulldog.
Sam,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep. Bulldog and a pump, really. So it's just the way to go. Bulldog and a diaphragm. So
Yeah, yep. I've been in situations where I've had to add it with a centrifugal pump, and it is just such a pain to keep it primed and everything. And like you're gonna probably get some solids, in the bottom of the drum. And yeah, that's why that diaphragm pump is definitely worthwhile and investing in if you're, gonna be adding a lot of drums. It's definitely, and all you need is like the racking cane. It's nice having, a sight glass there because you actually see it moving.
yeah,
There's less, you're going to have less DO exposure, or you have, it's a lot less likely because it's such a closed system with the diaphragm pump. Everybody knows about, the mechanical seal on, your centrifugal pumps can kind of, fail sometimes, leak a little, and then, you're introducing a bunch of oxygen. into your beer, which, I mean, if you're adding it like during fermentation, it should work itself out. And with the low pH that you're at, you shouldn't have a concern there. But, that's everyone's like nightmare, is just, something going wrong after you spent all this time, making this delicious beer, and then, something happens, or it's oxidized, you get where I'm heading with that. But
I think you're right though, Nick. Like when you said, there's nothing wrong with it, because there's really no wrong way to add the fruit in. And I think that's important for everyone to understand it. There's preferable, there's better, but you hear a lot of like people that make it sound like you're gonna absolutely ruin a beer if you add it this way, and it's there's scales to it, and you're not going to ruin it. You might have a better process doing something else, and it's the fun thing about this industry is always exploring new techniques and stuff like that. So, but don't be scared to add fruit because you think you're going to ruin a beer.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. Having that, like having the bulldog too, and having that like CO2 blanket, I think also like helps, just to prevent that dissolved oxygen. And
absolutely.
So yeah. What else we got here? So basically we have, there's kind of two different, I guess, camps, in regards to that. But nothing's wrong, and it's really what is best for your process. That kind of goes like back to what we were talking about with, ordering. It's like, it's not ideal, isn't always, for everyone, and things happen, and you have to adjust to it, but just kind of, keep a good head about yourself and just try and, do the best you can.
Yeah, totally.
But let's see. I don't know, some other fun fruits. We recently got red prickly pear.
Oh yeah.
And that's a really fun one and unique, and it's very similar to dragon fruit, but in my experience, it's just it has a little bit more flavor than dragon fruit, and the color is great. Is like imparts that beautiful neon pink red color.
Oh yeah, it's a gorgeous fruit.
Yeah, and that also pairs really well with another fruit that is maybe more aromatic, like guava or passion fruit. And having something, because everybody like drinks with their eyes, right? So that's another cool thing about our purees are all very bright in color, and you kind of like with the red prickly pear, you can achieve that great color, but then have something else driving the aroma, which is kind of interesting. And
it's weird how it can take a back seat and a front seat at the same time, where it's like it doesn't overpower the flavor of the beer, but like when a beer has red prickly pear in it. I mean, it's very obvious just looking at it. But yeah, I love that about it. I think back in the day, like putting small amounts of beet juice and things like that, and hoping that you don't get any beet flavor in your beer. I'd take a metric ton of prickly pear over any small amount of beet juice. But yeah, it's such an amazing fruit. I love it.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that. It's a lot, similar. So like, what's something for like some people out there that what are some things that you wish you knew about like fruit puree, or just anything really, just like some things you wish you knew that maybe like someone watching could kind of pick up, like a little trick that they might not know, and maybe you could help them save like a huge mistake, or any sort of, not trying to put you on the spot, but
oh yeah, no, sorry, yeah. I thought for a second you were opening it up to questions for everybody, but yeah, and I think it's a good point too. Like if you have a question about fruit, write in.
yeah,
Write it
absolutely.
here in the
Yeah,
comments. Just
anyone
hit
that's
us up.
watching, we can
But
actually
yeah,
see
I mean,
them.
I
There's
think one of the things.
actually, yeah, there's some comments here.
Oh, is there? I didn't even see that. I've been on the wrong channel here. Yeah,
That's actually
I'll
a
talk
lot.
while you're checking all that out. But yeah, so I mean, one of the things when a lot of people start off using fruit puree that I think is hard for them to wrap their head around, and understandably so. But it goes into other ingredients of beer too. But beer, it comes from agriculture. Beer is an agricultural product, and I think a lot of people forget that. And so, my advice is be prepared to adjust. So, if you're seeing something different, obviously, like the trick to being a good brewer is taste everything you do. But if you make a fruit addition and you're not prepared to add more, or you're taking it slow and you're not tasting it during it, then you're going to set yourself up for failure, because there is agricultural difference. And I think it's hard for people to understand that that's what makes beer beautiful. And that's why, craft beer has had such success, because there is variation, and that variation is nature. And that's what makes beer beautiful. And not to get, too far down that road, but just be prepared for it. So if you don't want as much variation, and you want the recipe where you're putting the exact same amount of fruit in every time, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it might not be the right career path for you. But yeah, be ready to just adjust those recipes on the fly. That's I think one thing that people who have a hard time or get discouraged from purees pretty quickly, it's because of that, because they're this is not the same as the last batch, or it doesn't taste the same as a sample I got, or something like that. So just be prepared to adjust.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because it is like, it's definitely a thing that it's easy to forget, that these are like, agriculture products, and there's going to be some lot to lot variation there. And it is nature at the end of the day, and it's not being produced in like a factory somewhere where everything is the same. And like you said, that's part of the fun, I think, that working with it, because you kind of just work with what you have. And I think that's kind of like the sign of an artist, is in getting to kind of use those different colors, if you will. But yeah, it's something that's like, it's frustrating, because you try and make a consistent product, and there are things that are beyond our control sometimes. So we try to do the best we can of with what we can.
I'm seeing a question right here asking about heat damage to raspberry this year. So someone who obviously has their finger on the pulse of the agriculture business. So that's exactly right. So I don't know, Nick, if you want to address that, but that's exactly what you need to be looking at, is what's going on with the crop.
Yeah, we've definitely seen, last year was kind of the beginning of it, just a huge, blackberry and raspberry, shortage. So, we're sourcing from Colombia. So, it might not be the exact same issue, but, global climate conditions are changing. So, it's affecting everything. And, the best we can do is just keep doing what we're doing and not compromise anything, just because there is a shortage. might be some variation there and it might be a little different, but at least we have it, for you. And then, you might have to do some thinking on your feet about that. But, that's part of anyone who's worked in a brewery knows like hops, malt, everything is changing every year. So why should fruit be any different,
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially if you're giving it the driver's seat in your beer. I mean, it would, I could not wrap my head around somebody that has a fruit forward, doing kettle sours, fruit forward kettle sours, and has this like big berry beer, and then wonders why, after not tasting it, why it tastes different. So, I mean, you have to treat these ingredients like children and just pay attention to them and know where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
The children.
The children.
Pay attention to your children. Yeah, I'm seeing some good questions here. I mean, this one's like, what volume of fruit from Chris Bryant? Volume of fruit per barrel are people using? That kind of, that it's very subjective, but we start with kind of giving a guideline of where to start your own like bench trials. And that's usually somewhere between the broad range, like half a pound per gallon to all the way up to like 2.5 to 3 pounds per gallon. If you're making something that has like an insane amount of fruit, like a smoothie sour or something that has hops and you're trying to fight against that. And, it's all subjective. That's like but that's where we recommend people to start with beer. And then like we were talking about in the beginning of this, if, you're adding it at the end of fermentation, like it's not going to ferment at all. That's going to be different than, adding it, during fermentation. And now like people are starting to get pasteurizers and, they're adding the fruit and then pasteurizing it so that there is that little bit of residual sweetness, but they don't have to worry about a can exploding or worse, so that's pretty cool. Damage. Yeah, Andrew S with the heat damage. And yeah, we kind of talked about that, but yeah, I mean, we try and we do what we can to keep things consistent. And, just like in your brewery, there's going to be some variation batch to batch, and the question is just like, is it true to the brand? And, you just want to try and be there as much as you can.
Yeah. Pros and cons of recirculating through a hop back. I mean, it's not really unlike the pros and cons of dry hopping that way too. There's you're going to use a significant amount of CO2 sometimes, depending on your equipment. But yeah, I mean, the pros are it's a safe, easy way to add product to your beer with minimal oxidation concern. And then the cons are the same. It takes time. It takes possibly several cycles, depending. But yeah, it's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Chris Bryant here with another great question. Does anyone recirculate fruit additions or just toss it in and leave it? That's a great question. And our buddy Jeff Opernica at Sabbath that we made a little video of that's on our website was actually showing that just that, like, recirculate it, especially if you're adding it post fermentation, because otherwise it just kind of sits there. And not everyone can have like an agitator like in their tank. And the best thing is just recirculate it for a bit. And And if you're worried about any solids or anything, you can, a little trick. I've actually put like a filter in line with a pump to try and, I was concerned about solids. This was using whole fruit, but it's, somewhat relative here that, you can recirc that and then kind of clear it up as well. If like you're concerned about, any like fruit particulate and whether you want that in your beer or not. Some people do. Some people like don't mind having some, fruit, like little bits of fruit pulp in there because it like shows you're using real fruit.
Yeah. And a couple pieces of advice too when recirculating is, not blowing through a channel, minding that and making sure that you're getting a good pull down, but also I think shorter and more often than one real long run. I think that you get a lot more impact letting it sit, letting it resettle, and then going through again for another recirc.
Yeah, no, that's good. And that's kind of, you kind of hit on some of these questions too.
Yeah.
From Bath Salt Blundo.
That's a good name.
That's a great name. Way to go, Bath Salt. Yeah, so I mean, just kind of, I guess we're kind of wrapping it up. If anybody else has any questions, submit them. Ask me anything.
This question about adding some during fermentation and then some after. I think that's your call. There's nothing wrong with it. I almost look at it like making a recipe with where you sweat the onions and then you throw some raw onions in at the end or something like that, where sure, it's going to do different stuff, so where you put it in is going to have different results. So if that's what you want in your final recipe, there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, absolutely. Just reading the comment.
Pass out Blenda.
Yeah. Essence. We've seen major variation appear incorporating brand.
I love this. Everyone's sharing their percentages and everything that they use.
Yeah, no, this is great, and this is what it's all about.
Yeah, totally.
It's like I can, I'm happy to help, and like, you could call me like anytime, and we could have the same conversation. But also talking to your colleagues, like, I mean, there's nothing better than that. Getting that, and that's just, that's like how you also, I don't know, just build relationships.
That's a good question, Andrew. And I have a hard time saying what people should or should not do when it comes to label, cola, TTB stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
because you probably shouldn't.
Because I probably have, and I probably should not have. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I would say with color adjustment, if you're doing a swap out, make it natural versus natural, as opposed to like, oh, I didn't get the level of red that I was looking for, so I go out and get artificial red coloring. I mean, I think keep it as close to home as you can. But yeah, if it's an adjustment for something like that, I would not go from natural on the label statement to something artificial to make up for it.
You'll get popped for that.
I think you're asking for trouble with that.
And even if you get away with it for a while, then your brand builds and blows up, and then next thing you know, you're in deep. Definitely don't want to.
And I mean, a lot of it too is fielding concern for that from your customers. And we're the worst critics of our beer, and you might hear from it, you might not, and some people might. I think there's this fear that people will just absolutely not buy that beer again, and I don't think that's the case. But I mean, if it's a severe variation and you have to do something, I get that. But if it's trying to nail something, a specific, you get out the color swatches from your paint store and stuff like that. do that to yourself. It's not worth it. It's just stand by your product being all natural and being an agricultural product.
I was guilty of that when I was brewing. I was very hypercritical, and hopefully I was the biggest critic, for the beers I was putting out. But
I
yeah,
was
it's
in
hard.
quality. It was like, Nick, don't worry about that. Like,
It's just, it's hard to get
wrong with
past yourself sometimes. Like, and you want, it all, reflects on you, and you're throwing a little cliche. You're only as good as like the last beer you brewed. So it's like you're always trying to push it and make things better. So that's just, but finally, like, you gotta like let go a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I totally I understand that resonates with me, and I'm sure it does a lot of people out there.
It's tough. I mean, we're under scrutiny to make a repeatable product using ingredients that come from the earth. And I mean, but we're in a supply chain environment, and everyone's under that scrutiny. I think that's one thing that I recommend is make partners with your suppliers instead of looking at yourself as the customer and them as the supplier. So if you want to be able to make your beers better, you only do that by allowing your suppliers to make their ingredients better. And I think that that's one thing to do, is just have a conversation about it with them, just like this here.
I was laughing at Andrew's comment. But yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought. It was funny. Yeah, it's just, it's it's one of those things that, you just gotta get past it, I guess, and do the best you can and make the product you're happy with, and not take yourself too seriously, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I had something else, and then I lost it. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, quality obviously has to come. Quality and safety obviously have to come first when using purees, but also just being diligent on continuous improvement. So, that always be looking at what makes things better from innovation standpoint to equipment and all that. And it's a never-ending battle, but it keeps your mind going, and it keeps this industry fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I remember what I was going to say now. Is going back to your kind of building a relationship with your suppliers. We try and build I try and build those relationships just so I kind of have an understanding of what you need and when you need it. And we're happy to take projections. Like, that's what we're working on for probably the better part of December and November and December and the end of January, just trying to get our ducks in a line, so that if you tell us you need something and give us a time, we'll have it, and we can make that happen. But we just have to know. And it's just, I know it's hard to plan sometimes, but and things change so rapidly in a production environment, because everything you're doing is oh wait, that's not right anymore, different projection. So it's and we're willing to work with you on that too. So I guess the bullet point is, like, we're here for you, and if you need something, if we don't have it, like, we will, we'll work to make that happen. And it's kind of just, about building those relationships and, being aware.
Yeah. Looking at this last question about averaging 84 pounds per batch and not getting the flavor out of some fruits. I mean, I'd say if you're not getting flavor out of certain fruits that you expect because of what you perceive that fruit should taste like, maybe just use a different fruit. But if it's variation, batch to batch variation, I think being prepared by having extra product on hand to be able to add in and boost up that flavor is the way to go with that. But if it's like, I add blueberries to my beer, and I think when I eat blueberries, they taste like this. It doesn't taste like that in beer. It's, blueberries might not lend well to the base beer that you're putting it in, and I think that that's a whole separate topic about marrying a base beer with the fruit flavor, because there's things that you can do with residual sugars in your beer, and some of those complex sugar chains and how they play off of fruit. And maybe that's for another presentation. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting to do. And Nick, I know you've looked at that a lot too, and really marrying the base, and especially working with wild ales and things like that. But marrying the base flavor with the fruit you're using is a whole world of difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you asked that. And glad we got to touch on that. And that could be like a whole other, that could be like a whole other thing. I feel like a lot of these topics we could go off on tangents and we could talk about some of these things like for a long time.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
That's an interesting question from Andrew too about fruit selection.
I saw that. I'm like,
awesome.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I love going to Yakima, but I want to go to Columbia.
Let's all go to Columbia. Yeah, exactly. You thought Yakima was wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's great. Awesome. And we the best we can do right now is just send you samples and work with you on things like that. But it's definitely that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Just like another excuse to hang out and talk fruit.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah,
that would be amazing.
No week-long hop headache. Nice. Yeah, just the other thing.
That's right. Yeah, not the you don't have the allergies.
Yeah.
I always have allergies sniffing hops, and I'd much rather be sipping on fruit water and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. One thing that I just thought about, kind of going back to what we were talking about with the just kind of ordering and having things on hand and being able to adjust if like something happens, you like accidentally miscalculate the volume or something, and then you added too much volume and then you add the fruit, but and you're not getting what you need. It's nice having that around. And even if you don't use it for that, we used to just make fun things and make small kegs or like treat a beer that we currently had, just to do something fun to change it up, like in the tasting room. And I've had customers like reach out and say, yeah, I need, an 11-pound bag or whatever. I'm not going to use the other one, whether it's for, like trying to dial in a new brand, like innovation brewing, like, you can always use it for something.
Oh, yeah.
You might stumble onto something that like, wow, I got this base beer around. I never added like strawberry to it left over from this. And this actually really works together.
Yeah, we throw a lot of purees in our slushy machine in the summer too. When it's like, we'll pull a few kegs off and play with different fruits through just making, adding a whole bunch of sugar, adding fruit puree, and making a slushy out of it in a slushy machine.
Yeah.
So yeah, little fun things you can do.
That's a cool one. And then here comes bath salt with bung-sided kegs are great for experimenting. I think you're talking about like a firkin or something, or are we talking like a corny keg? Corny kegs always work too for, doing small treatments, and you can kind of like we did that. That was something that, we couldn't even put it on the bar because of the connections, but it was something fun to have in the cooler and, our little water fountain, if you will.
Yeah. Yes, we never did that. But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's what's the point of working at a brewery, right?
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've kind of touched on everything we wanted to touch on in the description. I hope that this was useful for everyone, and thanks, Ben. Like this has been awesome, like getting to hear from you on this, and just kind of takes me back a little bit.
Yeah.
Times we've
Always
had.
fun talking to you, Nick. I
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it.
And I think we can do more of these because there's so much we can talk about. And
Oh yeah.
thank you everyone out there who submitted questions, because that just like it feels great being engaged with everyone. And hopefully this did a little bit of good, and we're gonna walk away from this a little more knowledge than you had before, or maybe a different perspective.
Nick, have you shared your email or anything like that with everybody?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get to. Yeah.
Yeah.
My email is nick@asepticfruitpurees. I'm free to answer your questions via email, or you can always just call me up. And I'm sure we'll put this up like after, but number 470-621-9168. If you ever, if any of this, you want to learn a little more or whatever, or we didn't touch on anything. Yep. Thanks, Andrew. There it is, the craft beer professional. So that's, that is it. And I'm happy to, help you with any further, inquiries. Anything to leave on, Ben?
Man. It's an exciting time to be in beer, and fruit is a major part of that. So yeah. Happy fruiting.
Happy fruiting. Cheers.
Thanks everybody.